Agent Kale felt a single drop of sweat run down his back. It was hot inside his human-issue bodyguard armor. But the room was cold. The Imperial greeting hall of the Draxi was carved from black, polished stone, and the air was thin and sharp. Kale was the first human to ever hold this post. He was the brand new bodyguard for the alien princess. This was not just a job. It was a peace treaty. His performance on this first day could mean peace or war for billions of people. No pressure. He stood at attention, his helmet tucked under his arm. He looked like a short, soft block of metal next to the Draxi royal guards. The Draxi were tall. They were thin, like elegant living statues. Their skin was the color of a pale blue sky, and their eyes glowed with a faint inner light. They wore no armor, only long flowing robes of silver and white. They did not need armor. They were famous for their deadly speed and their absolute unbreakable traditions. Kale had studied for this. He spent 6 months in a learning machine, trying to understand Draxi culture. It was a culture of 1,000 tiny, important rules. Rule 47, never show the palm of your left hand. Rule 219, never let your shadow touch a royal. Rule 801, the formal greeting must be spoken perfectly. There's no apology for a mistake. Kale was terrified of Rule 801. His mouth was dry. He swallowed, the sound loud in his own ears. He tapped the small silver disc on his collar. The Translator. It was the best tech the Human Alliance had. It was supposed to be perfect, but it had flickered that morning. He was checking his boots when the Translator had spoken a word of static. Just a hiss. The tech support officer had waved it off. Just cosmic background, the officer said. It's fine. It's rated for 99.9% accuracy. Kale was suddenly very, very worried about that 0.1%. A deep, musical gong sounded through the hall. The sound vibrated in Kale's bones. The massive carved doors at the end of the hall began to open. The entire hall dropped to one knee. Kale, his heart pounding, did the same. He fumbled for a second, his heavy armor clanking. He felt the blue eyes of the other guards on him. He felt like a clumsy child. She entered. Princess Xylia was 8 feet tall. She seemed to float rather than walk. Her robes were made of something that looked like captured light. Her face was beautiful, but it was a cold, sharp beauty, like a perfect crystal knife. Her eyes were not faint lights like her guards. Her eyes were 2 bright, burning stars. This was the woman he had to protect. She stopped, just as the training manual said she would. She stopped 10 feet in front of him. The entire hall was silent. They were waiting. This was it. The greeting. According to tradition, the new bodyguard had to speak first. He had to give the formal oath of service greeting. Kale had practiced the phrase. It was a simple, "Hello, I am here to serve." But in the Draxi language, it was a complex series of sounds that felt like rocks in his human mouth. He was not allowed to try. He had to use the Translator. He took a slow breath. He looked at the floor, as tradition demanded. He pressed the activation button on his collar. "Hello," he said, his voice clear and steady. He spoke the simple English word he was trained to use. "I am honored to be here." The Translator on his collar whirred. It was supposed to emit a smooth, flowing, musical tone. Instead, it made a sound like a crack. It was a horrible, grating, ripping sound. It was loud. It was a sound that did not belong in this perfect, quiet hall. Kale froze. His blood turned to ice. A sound went through the hall. It was not a gasp. It was 1,000 Draxi all breathing in at the exact same moment. Kale's head snapped up, breaking protocol. He looked at the guards. Their glowing eyes were wide. Their hands were on the energy weapons at their belts. Their faces were masks of pure, absolute shock. He looked at the princess. Princess Xylia had not moved. Her burning eyes were locked onto his. He could not read her expression. It was not anger. It was something else. Something he had never seen. Kale stammered. He tapped the translator. I'm sorry, I think it's broken. I meant to say hello. He spoke in English. The translator whirred again, and this time it let out a high-pitched, painful screech. One of the Draxi guards fainted. He just fell over, his armor clattering on the stone. What did I say? Kale whispered, taking a step back. Princess Xylia held up one long blue hand. The guards froze. She did not speak. She just stared at Kale. The silence in the room was so heavy Kale thought he would collapse. He had done it. He had failed. He had insulted her. This was it. This was how the war started. He braced himself. He waited for her to call for his head. He waited for her to pull a weapon and end him herself. Instead, she did something that was not in any training manual. Slowly, deliberately, the princess reached up to the high, silver collar of her light robe. Her long, elegant fingers went to the clasp. With a small click that sounded like a gunshot in the silent hall. She undid it. Kale stared, his mouth open. The princess's robe loosened. She then reached for the belt at her waist, a band of woven metal. Kale's mind was screaming. What is happening? She did not look angry. She did not look insulted. Her face was serious, almost respectful. She unhooked the belt. The entire court watched. And what Kale now understood was not anger, but disbelief. He watched, in pure human panic, as the most powerful woman in the galaxy, his new boss, the key to interstellar peace, began to strip. Agent Kale's mind was a white-hot blank. He had no training for this. The manual showed weapon systems, escape routes, and how to take a plasma bolt for the princess. They did not have a chapter for what to do if the princess strips. The great hall was so quiet. Kale could hear the blood pounding in his own ears. The princess's silver belt, woven from metal threads, hit the polished black stone floor. The clink was louder than an explosion. Her outer robe of light was next. She was not slow, but she was not fast. She was deliberate. Her movements were graceful and full of a terrible, sad duty. She pushed the heavy robe off her shoulders. It pooled around her feet in a shimmering, bright circle. Kale saw that the other guards were not just shocked. They were in agony. Their faces were tight with a pain he could not understand. They looked at him with a burning, terrible hatred. No! Kale shouted in English. It was all he could think to say. Stop, please. It was a mistake. His translator on his collar was dead. His human word just echoed, sharp and meaningless, in the huge room. The princess flinched. His shout seemed to hurt her. She thought he was angry. She thought he was correcting her for being too slow. Kale's panic turned to desperation. He had to stop this. He took one step forward. HSS's. In a single perfect motion, 20 Draxi Royal Guards ignited their energy pikes. The blue-white tips all pointed directly at Kale's chest. Do not move, human. A new voice commanded. An old Draxi stepped out from the side of the throne. He was even taller than the guards, but bent with age. His robes were a deep, dark purple. His eyes glowed not with bright light, but with a low, deep, and wise fire. This was High Lord Vorlag, the chief advisor. He spoke English. His voice was slow, and the words were old, but Kale understood him. You have done a terrible thing, Vorlag said. He was shaking, not with fear, but with a deep, cold rage. It was a mistake, Kale said, holding up his hands. My translator. It broke, look. In his panic, Kale did the worst thing he could. He reached up, tore the small silver translator disc from his collar, and threw it on the ground. The metal skittered across the floor. This time, the Draxi did gasp. To throw technology, To show such human emotion was a second massive insult. "We know it broke, human," Vorlag said, his voice a low growl. "You think we are fools?" He pointed a long blue finger at Kale. "Your machine." It did not speak the first oath of service. It did not say, "I am here to serve." Kale waited. What did it say? What did I do? High Lord Vorlag looked at the princess. She had stopped moving. She stood in a simple, thin, white shift. Her hands were at her shoulders, ready to remove the final layer. She was waiting. Her face was a mask, but Kale could see a single crystal tear forming in her bright, starry eye. "Your machine ... Vorlag said, his voice full of disgust. It spoke an ancient, forbidden phrase, a word that has not been heard in this hall for 1,000 years. Vorlag looked Kale directly in the eyes. It said, "Cathar Vale." Kale just stared. The word meant nothing to him. "It means, I see your shadow," Vorlag translated. It is a formal, high-level accusation. It means you believe the person is a traitor, that they are hiding ... something. Kale's stomach dropped. "No, I just said hello." "It does not matter what you said," Vorlag hissed. "Your machine declared a challenge of purity. You, the new bodyguard, have formally accused the princess of being unpure. You have accused her of hiding a weapon, or poison, or treason against her own people." Kale looked, horrified, at the princess, at her shaking hands, at the single tear that now traced a line down her perfect blue skin. "And in our culture," Vorlag continued, his voice breaking, "there is only one ... way for a royal to answer a challenge of purity from her own guard." Kale finally understood. "She has to prove it. She has to show me she has nothing to hide. She must prove her purity," Vorlag whispered. "She must strip, bare, in front of the entire court, to show you, her accuser, that she is clean, that she has no shadow." Kale felt sick. He had not just insulted her. He had, by ancient law, forced her to humiliate herself in front of her entire people. "Stop her," Kale begged, looking at Vorlag. "Tell her it was a mistake. Tell her to stop." High Lord Vorlag's face turned from rage to pure, cold despair. "We cannot," he said. "What do you mean you can't?" Kale yelled. "The ritual has been invoked, human. The challenge was made." Vorlag shouted back, his composure finally breaking. "If we stop her now, if she stops, the law says the challenge is true." Kale's blood ran cold. "If she stops," Vorlag said, his voice a dead whisper, "she is admitting guilt. She is admitting she is a traitor. The law is absolute. She will be executed. On the spot." Kale looked at the guards. Their glowing pikes were still pointed at him. They were not to stop him. They were waiting to execute their princess. He looked at Xylia. Her eyes met his. She was trapped. He had given her two choices: humiliate herself, or die. Kale's mind was racing. He was a bodyguard. His job was to protect. He had to protect her from the law he had just aimed at her, like a loaded gun. He saw the guards' hands tight on their energy pikes. He saw High Lord Vorlag's face, a mask of sad duty. He saw Princess Xylia's hands, trembling as they moved to the last thin layer of her clothing. He had no translator. He had no weapon. He had no time. So he did the only thing a human could do. He broke all the rules. Nitrogen monoxide. He shouted, his voice raw. He did not run at the guards. He did not run from the guards. He ran past them, directly at the princess. The reaction was instant. The Draxi guards surged forward, their pikes humming with lethal energy. They were too slow. Kale was not trying to attack. He was trying to serve. He crossed the 10 feet of open floor in 2 seconds. The princess flinched, her eyes shutting. a final tear rolling down her cheek. She thought he was coming to strike her. Instead, Cale dropped. He did not just go to one knee. He fell to both knees, skidding on the polished stone. He landed hard, his armor clanging, right at her feet. He was not looking at her. He was turned around, his back to her, facing the entire, shocked court. He was her shield. He bowed his head, exposing the back of his neck. A universal sign of total surrender. The challenge was mine. He yelled in English, his voice muffled by the floor. The mistake was mine. The shadow is mine. Punish me. The hall froze. The guards stopped, their pikes just inches from Cale's back. This was not in any law book. This was not a ritual. This was chaos. High Lord Vorlag stared, his ancient mind trying to process what he was seeing. What is he doing? Vorlag whispered, his English weak from shock. Cale looked up, over his shoulder at the High Lord. I made the challenge, but I was wrong. The impurity is mine, not hers. My translator failed. My words failed. I am the shadow. He turned back to the court and shouted, I challenge myself. This was the loophole. The human, illogical, emotional loophole. In Draxi law, a challenge of purity was a single terrible event. It could not be shared. It could not be twofold. By accusing himself, Cale had done a single insane move. Pulled the accusation from the princess. A low murmur of disbelief went through the hall. Princess Xylia's hands, which had been at her shoulders, slowly lowered. She looked down at the human in his heavy armor, who was now a trembling, protective wall at her feet. The glowing pikes did not lower. They simply turned. All 20 pikes were now aimed at a new target. Agent Cale. High Lord Vorlag's face was grim. The law was still absolute. Human, Vorlag said, his voice cold. You have transferred the challenge. The princess is ... safe. Cale let out a breath. He had done it. Good, he panted. That's all that matters. But the challenge remains, Vorlag said, stepping forward. You have declared yourself unpure. You have admitted to having the shadow. The penalty for a failed challenge is death. The guards took one step closer. I accept, Cale said. His job was to die for her, if needed. He just thought it would be from a plasma bolt, not a legal problem. No, the voice was not Cale's. It was not Vorlag's. It was the princess. Cale looked up. Princess Xylia stood over him. She had not put her robe back on. She stood in her simple white shift, but she was no longer ashamed. Her eyes were burning with that bright, royal fire. She was magnificent. He is not unpure, she said, her voice ringing with command. Your Highness, Vorlag protested. The law. He has confessed. He has not, Xylia corrected him, walking forward. She stopped in front of a guard, who immediately lowered his pike. He said the shadow was his. And he is correct. I will show you the shadow. She walked toward Cale. He was still on his knees. She looked down at him. He did not challenge himself, she said to the court. He challenged his mistake. She reached out. Cale flinched, but her touch was gentle. She did not touch his skin. Her long blue fingers found the spot on his collar where the broken translator had been. I accuse. This, she said. She pointed to the ground where the small silver disc lay. The translator Cale had thrown down. That, she said, her voice full of power. That is the shadow. A broken piece of metal. A flawed machine. Not a living person. She looked at High Lord Vorlag. Her gaze was sharp as a knife. The shadow has been found. The challenge is answered. The human is innocent. Vorlag stared at her. His mouth opened, then closed. He looked at the law in his mind, and found that she was, in a strange, beautiful, logical way, correct. The challenge was against the accusation, and she had found its source. Slowly the old Draxi bowed. The challenge is answered. A single massive sigh went through the hall. The guards retracted their pikes. The war was over. Princess Xylia looked down at Kale. He was still staring at her, his mind broken. She offered him her hand. "Rise, Agent Kale," she said. He took her hand. It was cool and strong. She pulled him to his feet. "Your Highness," he stammered. I can't. I am so sorry." "Do not be sorry," she said. She picked up her glowing robe and calmly, gracefully, put it back on. "You are human. Your logic is chaos, but your loyalty is absolute. You were willing to die for me. That is a very good quality in a bodyguard." She fastened the clasp at her neck. "But Agent Kale," she said, a tiny, almost invisible smile on her lips. "Yes, Your Highness? From now on, please, just wave."